As I was growing up, my mama used to emphasize on the importance of studying, like many of you. She would tell me that, Gary, you have to study hard, get into university, and graduate with a degree so that you could be set for life. And being the good boy that I was, I followed my mother's instructions. I listened to her, I studied hard, got into university and graduated with a degree. And then I entered the workforce. And I discovered everyone else around me had a degree too. So that probably didn't make me any different. So I was a bit lost. And I asked my friends around me, what should I do? And my friends said, Gary, don't be naive. You need to pursue further education. I went, huh? And they said, you need to take a master's degree. I said, oh, okay. So I spent 6 months of my life doing research on a suitable master's program. And I finally found an MBA. I dedicated 4 years of my youth to the elusive MBA program. And by the time I graduated, I realized many did the same. In fact, I recently went to a business trip to India. And I had chat with some of my Indian colleagues, and we were just sharing about our academic accolades. I was a little bit sheepish about sharing what I had, because one of them said, oh, I've got 2 master's degrees. Another one said, I had 3. And one of them said, I have a PhD. And they said, oh, so Gary, what do you have? I have one MBA. And that led me to think, if relentlessly chasing after paper qualifications to attain better skills and knowledge is not the answer to staying relevant in today's world, then what is? Regardless of who we are, where we are from, what stage of life we're at, we're all facing the same situation. We're all exposed to change. Changes we cannot control, changes we cannot prepare for. For some of us, it's a teeny little bit uncomfortable. For others, it's just plain scary. The inability to anticipate and prepare for this change can sometimes leave us feeling helpless. I stumbled across the answer in my current profession, which requires me to identify and develop high-potential employees throughout the world. And I discovered that some of my business leaders have a very interesting perspective of what high-potential talents look like. To them, it was someone who was eloquent, somebody who was confident, vocal, and driven. Now, if you listen to this definition very closely, you realize it disadvantages introverted talents who don't necessarily come from sales and may not have English as their native language. So I was tasked to redefine what high-potential talents really look like. And I came up with this simple definition. Not all high performers are high potentials, and not all high potentials are high performers. In fact, in my organization, I went a step further. I looked into certain behaviors that high potential talents should have. Resourcefulness, adaptability, learning agility, just to name a few. So my business leaders were tasked to identify their talents and nominate them into a specially designed talent program, where for the first 7 to 9 months, they will be put into a pressure cooker environment, going through various activities and experiences to really assess their true potential. And most recently, I went to Denmark to facilitate a 5-day kickoff event where, global talents from all over the world were put into this 5 days, and we really grilled them, put them through various experiences, activities to see those who were not high potentials, and we had to filter them out. So I met this one lady. She was very curious, very friendly, very outgoing, confident, asked a lot of questions. If you hear things like that, you're going like, wow, she is a high potential. That was what I thought too, right? But you can never judge a book by its cover. When she went through various activities, we realized she wasn't as high potential as what we initially thought, even though she was highly recommended by her boss. We discovered that she lacked, even though she asked a lot of questions, she lacked depth in the quality of questions. And not only that, when we put her into uncomfortable situations, she became very jittery. Now, for those of you who have or who are working, we never like feedback, but we had to, in HR, we had to give her feedback. So we told her after the kickoff event that she had to be better grounded, she had to have better business acumen. Familiar, right? And I think that when she walked away, she felt more confused than enlightened. So I went in search of the answer. So if looking for high potentials, I mean, what is high potential to all of us? I asked my fellow HR professionals, hey, what's your take on high potentials? And they tell me things like this. They say, oh, Gary, we're looking for the X factor. We are looking for star personality. We are looking for exemplary leadership qualities. Even to a HR, I have no idea what that means to you. So what more to a layman? And then I came up with a simpler term. Simple. Wisdom. And some of you are going, how is that any simpler? Because then what is wisdom? Now, if you think about it, wisdom is exactly why interviews are a crucial part of any job application. If your resume, your well-written resume, your certificates and written assessments are sufficient to assess if you can do well in the job role, then why do we even need interviews? I mean, some of us go through multiple rounds of interviews to meet people, and they ask question after question after question, and we ask ourselves, why are they asking us so many things? When I ask fellow interviewers, what are they really looking for? Because sometimes I get confused too. And they say, oh, we want to check their personality. We want to assess their behavior by asking questions. And they want to check for culture fit. That's a difficult thing to do just by asking questions, right? But it was interesting because throughout all my conversations with them, the idea of skills and knowledge rarely came into the equation. So, by now, some of you may be asking me this question, so what is wisdom? And that in part has got to do with the word growing up. Because growing up today requires us to attain wisdom through relevance instead of time. You can be in a function or industry for 10 years, but you've not gained any wisdom from it. All the years don't matter. And relentlessly chasing after paper qualifications, bettering your skills and knowledge can be extremely exhaustive. And worse still, all these can become obsolete very, very quickly. So some of you may ask, so Gary, so what is wisdom? You know, you've talked about this, you have, enticed us with this word. And I went in search of the answer. I asked HR leaders, business personalities, and even ordinary folk on what was their take on wisdom. And believe me, I had tons of definitions. Some of them gave me a single statement and left me on my way. Some of them sat me down and spoke to me for hours, which I regretted. Some of them would tell me their life story, finally coming up with the moral of the story. And that was, actually they should have just accelerated everything and just say, this is it, this is wisdom. And I found out that the more I asked, the more confused I became, because the varieties were just too many. And that led me to realize something. That wisdom isn't a definition. It is a process. Every single one of us who's seated here today, we have our own definition of what wisdom is. But the process of getting to that wisdom is similar. Now, I believe a lot of here, we have met wise people before. If you think about them, your wise personalities, business leaders, or ordinary folk who you believe are wise, yes, they may all come from different walks of life, but they all have something in common. They have learned something from the experiences that they went through. It could be a life-changing event. It could be a major failure. As long as they have learned something from it, they attain wisdom. How can we continue to grow in a world of ever-changing disruptions and trends in order to attain wisdom today? Some of you may decide, it's time for me to go back to school. I want to pursue further education, like get a master's degree. Some of you may think, it's too time-consuming. I'm just going to follow the latest trends. I'm going to go and enroll in courses related to fintech or digital marketing. And frankly speaking, it doesn't matter what you do. As long as you know why you do what you do and create relevance, you attain wisdom. Look beyond the skills and knowledge that you learn and focus on more how all these experiences gets you to grow as a person. That is a lot more important. Now, when I reflect upon my life, I ask myself, how do my past experiences get me to where I am today? I mean, come on, I didn't plan to be in HR. I don't believe any child at the age of 5 years old will tell their mommy and daddy, I want to be in HR. I want to approve leave. I want to fire people. I mean, being a typical boy that I was, I guess, I believe, I wanted to be a policeman, right? Fighting the good and things like that. But my mother was very persuasive. My mother thought that being a policeman was too dangerous because she took my childhood ambition seriously. So she kind of like swayed me over and she said, son, be a banker. Then I asked her why. She said, you can make a lot of money and buy a lot of toys. Wow, okay, that's good. So I decided, hey, my childhood ambition was to be a banker, right? But I ended up in HR. But when I look back, I realized that all my past experiences were there for a reason. Now, believe it or not, I graduated with a computer science degree. Odd, right? HR and computer science. But it taught me more than just programming. It taught me systems thinking, an eye for detail, and most importantly, patience. For those of us who have done programming, having to debug millions of codes over hours will test your patience to a whole new level. My MBA taught me more than just business acumen and numbers. It taught me how to understand people from different perspectives, learning how to handle people with big egos, and learning how to agree to disagree. Now, when I look at the sports that I played when I was younger, it wasn't just about keeping fit. It was learning that I had to be disciplined if I wanted to do well in the sport. And I think very, very important, especially for parents who are seated here, learning that losing does not make you a loser. Being gracious about it, that is something very, very important. Learning how to pick myself up whenever I fell and being my own greatest critic. Now, I've done volunteer work with youths, and it was interesting because I think they helped me more than I helped them. They taught me to see the best in people, and it taught me how to develop empathy. And especially for men, empathy is a precious commodity. Yes. And what I found most valuable in this journey wasn't the skills, the knowledge, or the content, but how it continuously molds a person's personality and create networks. All these made me a much wiser and stronger person than when I first started my HR career. Now, with new job titles appearing in the market today, it is challenging for HR to find the right person for the right job. In the past, I could look at your academic qualification or your industry experience and simply place you in that job. Today, it's a totally different ballgame. I'll give you an example. My organization recently hired a chief technology officer, right? So if you hear the term, you probably think to yourself, okay, I would hire somebody from a technology background, makes sense. I would probably hire somebody who comes from a mature tech company, like, for example, Apple, Google, or Dell, right? I mean, it's a logical decision. But the funny thing was my group management decided to hire somebody from a totally different spectrum altogether. They hired a Swedish entrepreneur. To put it more specifically, a technopreneur, another new term, right? So he had expertise in starting up small tech companies, building them successfully. And I realized that what my group management saw in him wasn't the skills and knowledge that he had, but the wisdom. He had the ability to build things up from scratch, work with scarce resources, and most importantly, wasn't afraid to roll up his sleeves to get the job done. Growing up today requires us to attain wisdom through relevance. It can be anything we do. It can be the books we read, the interests we have, the causes we support, or the learnings that we take. In fact, it could also be the stumbling blocks that are perpetually in front of us. Instead of blaming it on sheer bad luck, that's a lot of bad luck to have. Focus on how you can learn from it. It will continue to refine and define our personality, beliefs, values, and principles. All of us seated here today can be a high potential in life if we choose to. It is not about gaining experience, but gaining relevance through experiences. Now, for those of us who have gone for interviews or have undergone the annual performance review, we always get this dreaded question that we absolutely hate. Where do you see yourself in 3 years' time? How are you going to answer that? Because frankly speaking, some folks don't even know what they're going to eat for lunch. You ask me to project for 3 years. And you know, being in a corporate world, we have to be politically correct. So I would say things like, oh, I want to grow with the organization. I want to contribute to the organization. I couldn't even tell my boss, I want to take your position in 3 years' time. I can't say that, right? And I really wish, I had the wisdom back then to give a much better answer. Wiser than I was 3 years ago. Now, when I think back about my wonderful mother, I realize she did more than just nag at me to study. All mothers nag. That's how they show their love. She actually gave me pearls of wisdom as well. And she said this, something I'd like to share with you. She said, Gary, being smart gets you an A in school, but being wise gets you an A in life. Thank you.